What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel where we have got some big one championship news to talk about. We have got the top two headlining bouts. My camera is slightly wonky here. Let me just do a little adjustment. Is that better? I think that's better. We've got two big fights announced for one championship second show in the United States this year. Of course, we've got 167 coming up. God, I keep getting the numbers wrong. We've already had 167. 168 that goes down on September 6th in Denver at the Ball Arena. We've got fights for that. Potentially some things happening with that card. Obviously because Stamp is injured and probably can't make that main event in time, I would imagine. So we will react to that when the news is out there. But in the meantime, of course, we do have a second show in the United States coming up. That goes down in Atlanta at the State Farm Arena on November 8th. And we have got our first two fights, our top two fights on this card are announced. I did actually give my live reaction to this on the One on SK podcast that actually I just finished recording. As I'm recording this, it's over on the Sportskeeda MMA Originals channel. You can head over there, click on the live thing, and you can watch the live replay. You know what I mean? The live stream of that podcast where the news dropped literally as we started recording, myself and Nick Atkin, and we were joined by Adriano Moraes, the former flyweight champion. So there's a bit of a chat with him there as well. So check that out. I will leave a description link. Brains frazzled. I've been doing podcasts for like the last hour. I do apologize. Link will be in the description so you can check that out. But let's talk about these top two fights for Atlanta. Let me just pull these up on screen for you all. There we have it. In the main event, Anatoly Malykhin will be defending one of his three world championships in one. This will be the heavyweight championship, and he will be defending against Umar Reug Reug Tawanchai. We'll get to that in a minute. And of course, the co-main event, as you can see there, I know that my head is kind of blocking that. Let me switch that. There you go. For the Featherweight Muay Thai World Championship, it is Tawanchai versus Jo Nattawut for the third time. Let's talk about that one first before we move on. Let me pull that back up there. So Tawanchai and Jo Nattawut in the co-main event. The big question that I had immediately on the podcast that we just did was, how does this impact the featherweight Grand Prix that was supposed to be going ahead later this year? It doesn't look like that's going to happen now. You would imagine that Tawanchai and Jo would have been two of the entrants in that. So this is, of course, based off of the fact that at 167, these guys fought in the main event. Tawanchai defended the title in a very, very controversial decision. I personally had it for Tawanchai. I did watch it, the one time and wasn't really, trying to score the fight per se. I was just watching it as a fan. And I thought Tawanchai did enough. I thought he won the first two rounds. I thought he did enough to win the fifth round to give him the unanimous, to give him my scorecard, at least, whether it was unanimous or not. It was a very, very close fight, so I could see it being, a split or whatever. It ended up being a majority, I believe, because one judge had it a draw, which I think would have been a fair result also. It was very, very close. And that was obviously a rematch of their other very closely contested fight at One Fight Night 15, where they met in kickboxing. Again, I thought Tawanchai won that one. It was very close. So I actually have Tawanchai 2 up in this series, but I know a lot of people thought that Jo Nattawut could have got his hand raised in either, if not both, of those fights. So they are going to do it again. The co-main event, the trilogy fight. I think that if you are going to bring anyone over from Muay Thai, one of the big Thai stars over, is this fight going to be, kind of what we got last year in Denver, where you have the likes of Rob Tang putting on these super fun fights? I don't expect this one to be like a crazy barn burner. I think it's going to be another very closely contested fight between them over 5 rounds. So, but at the same time, you get to showcase some high level striking. And I think, there's a clear narrative there, right? Of course, the fact that they've met twice and it was very controversial. And you had the champion Tawanchai, who's a big star in Thailand, got a lot of support over there. And there was boos during his post-fight interview. Were they particularly directed at Tawanchai? I don't think so. I think it was more at the scorecards. Rather than the champion himself, but there is a narrative there, right? And Jo Nattawut, of course, he lives out in the US, so I know he's been pushing to fight out in the US. So it'd be a cool moment for Muay Thai over in the United States, at least. So yeah, I think this is a good pick for a co-main event. We'll get to what could have been on this card, which maybe won't be, as a result of these two fights being announced after we get to this, because I do think these are two very good fights, regardless of what could have been on this card. In the main event, Anatoly Malykhin back up at heavyweight. Obviously, the last time we saw him compete was at middleweight when he defeated Reinier de Ridder in their second fight at 1166. No, 1165. No, 1166 in Qatar. Like I said, the numbers are all getting jumbled up in my head today. So he's returning to heavyweight to take on Reug Reug, who a lot of people I think saw this one coming. Let me quickly pull up. It's opened in a new tab, so you guys won't get to see it. But Reug Reug is coming off of 3 wins. His last loss was to Kirill Groshenko back in 2021, and since then, 3 wins, 1 finish out of the 3. But the last one over Buchecha in particular was particularly. I mean, it was a bit of a messy fight at points, but it was a good performance from Reug Reug to get that win, I think. And I think that made a lot of sense for him to go from there to the title shot when he beat Buchecha, who was probably, I think if Buchecha had won that fight, he probably would have got a title shot too. So it was very much a title eliminator. And I think that this is a really fun one because of the two personalities you've got involved. I think the US fans will be able to gravitate towards these two guys. They are both, freak athletes, very, very strong wrestlers with knockout power. So you'd imagine this one won't go past the first 5 minutes. I think if it does, it's because Malykhin is maybe fighting a little bit safer. Even though he does tend to push for the finishes and uses pressure, he might think, I can probably outlast this guy if I want to and stay on my back foot or use my speed and my movement a little bit more. Whether that'll happen or whether he just goes at Reug Reug and we get a crazy fight for as long as it lasts, who knows? But definitely a fun fight, and I think a very good pick for the main event, considering, like I said, the both guys that are in this exciting fighting styles, easy to sell a heavyweight fight. Someone's going to go to sleep, and two very entertaining personalities. In terms of what isn't going to be on this card as a result, as Nick referred to on the SK podcast, potentially Christian Lee. Other plans for him? I thought he would have been on this card. You would imagine that with these two being on there, you might get another title fight. But in terms of other strikers being on this card, practically everyone on the one roster wants to be a part of these cards. And there's, of course, a lot of champions in one because of the multiple disciplines that they do. I would expect to see some kind of submission and grappling on this card. Obviously, you've got Cade and Mikey coming up very, very soon in. Is it going to be on that kind of scale? Absolutely not, I don't think. But I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see a Daniel Kelly or a Ty Ruotolo on this card. Maybe not defending their titles, maybe in some kind of catch weight matchup instead or something like that. But yeah, I think that there's a lot that could have been on this card. I think that both of these fights are very good picks. I think if you were asking me to make a top 5 list of fights that could be on this card, I would probably have Malykhin and Reug Reug in there. Tawanchai and Nattawut. I didn't expect it to be so soon because of Tawanchai's eye after that second fight. I probably would have gone for something else, maybe. But I do think that this is still, definitely up there as one of the picks I would have made for sure. This isn't completely out of the blue, and I think that narrative that they have from the previous fights is definitely going to help in that vein. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see these fights. Like I said, I actually do have Tawanchai winning the previous 2 encounters with Jo Nattawut, so I wasn't crying out for this rematch, but I do think it makes sense, and I think that the main event should be very, very fun whilst it lasts, and close the show in style. And you would imagine that we're going to get some other big names on this card. Hopefully, some of the people that we haven't seen in a while. Hopefully, some other exciting striking stuff on this card. Obviously, it remains to be seen what's going to happen with the Featherweight Grand Prix. What's going to happen with the potential trip to Japan that I was kind of led to believe would be before this card. And now that this is confirmed as 1169, following on from 1168 in Denver, looks unlikely. So we will see what happens. I'm sure there'll be more information in the coming weeks. But until then, we've got these 2 fights to look forward to. Thank you for checking out this video. Let me know, what are you guys most excited about with this card? Is it one of the fights that's been announced? Is it the prospect of a different fight that we don't know about yet? Who have you got winning these fights? Is this, comparable so far to the other 2 US shows we have? Obviously, the card for 1168 and One Fight Night 10 last year. Because I would imagine a lot of people would say, does it have the name value of a DJ versus Mirage 3? No. Does it have the name value? Of course, we were supposed to have Stamp, but even Haggerty and Superlek, probably not. But like I said, we will see what else gets added to this card in the near future. But until then, like I said, thank you for checking out this video, and I will see you all very, very soon. Until then.